Hello, I am Editor Than Mai. I will provide you with the latest information of the day. In rare ministerial call, Europeans urge Iran to resume nuclear talks. Avert escalation. Kanaskis. Alberto Reuters. European foreign ministers told their Iranian counterpart in a call on Monday to return to nuclear negotiations with the US and refrain from escalating conflict with Israel, to which Iran's foreign minister said Tehran's priority was to confront Israel for now, according to a French diplomatic source. Israel launched what it called Operation Rising Lion against Iran's nuclear facilities in the early hours of Friday, just 2 days before US and Iranian negotiators were due to resume talks to forge a new deal on Iran's nuclear program. Israel called it a preemptive strike designed to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Iran has denied plans to develop such weapons and retaliated by launching counterstrikes on Israel. France, Britain and Germany, known as the E3, are party to the 2015 nuclear accord with Iran, which aimed to curb Iran's nuclear program in return for sanctions lifting. Last week they put forward a resolution that was approved by the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency, a UN watchdog, which declared Iran in breach of its nuclear non-proliferation obligations. The ministers urged Iran to return to the negotiating table as quickly as possible, without preconditions, the source said, calling on Iran to avoid any headlong rush against Western interests. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araqi was quoted by state media saying that he had recalled Iran's seriousness in diplomacy and emphasized that Iran has never left the negotiating table, but that Tehran's focus at this stage is, of course, to effectively confront aggression. France's Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot spoke to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio ahead of the E3's call with Araqi, the diplomatic source said. The source said the E3 had separately passed messages to Israel urging it to not strike Iranian authorities, infrastructure, or civilian populations. The European powers, who were not part of Iran's nuclear negotiations with the United States, had grown increasingly frustrated by the US strategy in the talks. An initial written proposal from the Trump administration at the end of May was deemed very tough and offered little in return for Iran. As part of last week's IAEA resolution, European officials had said they could refer Iran to the United Nations Security Council later in the summer to add pressure on Iran if there was no progress in the nuclear talks. That would be separate to them reimposing UN sanctions, known as the snapback mechanism, before October 18, when the 2015 accord expires. The Europeans are the only ones who can launch the snapback mechanism, with diplomats saying the three countries had looked to set a final deadline of end of August to launch. It was unclear what their policy would now be. French President Emmanuel Macron said on Sunday that given Europe's knowledge of the nuclear dossier, it should be a key protagonist if nuclear talks resume. Asked about the call, which also included the EU's foreign policy chief, a source familiar with US thinking said Washington was not overly concerned since the US clearly had the biggest role to play in de-escalating the Israel-Iran conflict. At the end of the day, there's only going to be one country in the driver's seat of ending the war, and that's going to be the United States, obviously in partnership with Israel, the source said. If the world jumps in and it becomes more of a collaborative effort, as long as it's not undermining the foreign policy strategy of the United States or its ally Israel, I'm sure there will be no concerns. The source said, please like and subscribe to wait for the next information. Goodbye and see you again.